All right. Hello, everyone. Sorry, I'm a little bit late. I am aware, but hopefully we're able to just, if you're watching it through the VOD, I do apologize. You can just skip ahead to this part, hopefully here. But I wanted to go ahead and do a stream about Bulls training camp updates as we are. This is day 3 of Bulls training camp, and we have gotten actually a lot of information from all the beat writers. So shout out to all the beat writers being there and taking care of things and making sure that we get all the information we need. They've done a really good job of getting some quotes and making sure we get all the updates from Will Gottlieb or from Billy Donovan's, like guys like Will Gottlieb and Casey Johnson, Julia Poe, and others are doing a really good job of getting all the information that we are looking for. So I sincerely do appreciate them doing their work, and because of that, I wanted to go ahead and talk about the training camp updates we've gotten. I've we've heard some things about starting lineup stuff, so I want to talk about that. The theme of the media day was all about physicality and such, so like how are the Bulls doing in that so far from what we've heard. And most importantly, we got to talk about the injuries that have already hit the Bulls, as we already know Kobe White is already injured and is going to be limited throughout training camp and preseason. But we got more info yesterday and today about potential injuries that have already happened to some players. So we're going to go over that. If you have not already hit the like button on the stream, please do. Helps me out a lot. I see Eric Kush. I don't know if he's even here right now, but they typed in earlier, why the hell would you schedule this the same time as the Cubs playoff game? Reason why is that, first off, I'm not a Cubs fan, so I apologize for that inconvenience, but you can always just watch the VOD. It's completely fine. It'll always be here. So I'm not so concerned about necessarily when I'm able to do these streams, but this is just the best time for me, so I do apologize that it is not the best time for y'all. But if you are rooting for the Cubs, good luck today. It's going to be a very stressful day, I'm sure. But right now, for me, unfortunately for me, this is just the best time. It's Thursday Night Football tonight, so, I'm not going to be able to stream a little bit later. So, yeah, good luck to everybody in the baseball playoffs, because Game 3 wildcards, good luck to that. Going at Liver Strike. I'm watching both as a man of culture. Yes. I applaud you for doing such a thing. Yeah, not a Cubs fan. I'm a Sox fan here, so sorry to everybody about that. But yeah, all I'm just gonna say is good luck. If the Cubs lose, I'm like, to me it doesn't really matter at all. But yeah, I understand though for everybody. But all right. So last time I streamed, we talked about all the press conferences from Media Day, and I think that the biggest takeaway from Media Day was about just physicality, the emphasis from the front office and Billy Donovan to talk about how much the team needed to get better defensively, but also how much the team needed to do a lot of like the little things to help increase their possessions. One of the things that Billy Donovan talked about the first day of training camp was, which I found honestly really interesting, was how much he was like looking at possessions that so for the Bulls in their games, like they average 92 possessions per game, but then for their opponents they average 96, and he was really looking at like, okay, well, turnovers are huge, obviously. Turnovers obviously are a massive part of why we're giving extra possessions to the squad, but we're also not helping create our own extra possessions. Like, we're not getting deflections, we're not getting steals. We are one of the lowest in terms of deflection rate in the league, in terms of just getting steals in the league in general. While the Bulls were a really good defensive rebounding team last season, they were not a good offensive rebounding team. So there's just areas of improvement that kind of puts themselves, like they kind of go into like the physicality category for the Bulls that I think Billy is looking to really try to improve for this team this year. But it's just so interesting to hear that from him, because I look at the squad that this Bulls team currently has, and the only change to it has been bringing in Isaac Okoro and drafting Noah Senge, right? Other than that, everyone else that was on the team last year is back, besides obviously THT. So I just really look at this, squad, and I look at Billy Donovan, I'm like, you're preaching all these things, and I'm happy that you are preaching these things and pointing out the weaknesses of this squad. The problem is, though, is that I don't know if the front office is giving you enough of a team to help you in those areas. And like, I want to make this clear because I know that some people were kind of complaining about what was said at the press conference. I was complaining about some stuff that AK was saying about his vision of the squad, and the vision of how to build a team. But I want to make it clear that I was not complaining about them talking about physicality and trying to make this team tougher, quote unquote, and be better defensively. That's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. I'm just pointing out that I don't know if this team has the actual personnel to go out and improve in those categories. So I wanted to make that clear at the start of this stream, because I know that some people have started to talk about, like, did what AK say or did what Billy say, was that out of pocket? I don't think it's necessarily out of pocket. I'm just like wondering to myself, like, can this team really even get better in these categories with these guys? Some of your better defensive guys don't really see the floor because of the lack of offense, and then some of their better defensive, and then some of the offensive guys that I know are gonna have the ball in their hands, they just don't really play defense. So it's just kind of a major question for me. But with that being said, though, I do like what I'm hearing from what Billy Donovan and others have said about training camp. I do think Isaac Okoro is going to come in and bring some defensive physicality to the squad. He'll be a nice addition to the perimeter defense that, this team sorely lacks point of attack defense. And I do think Okoro is going to come in and help with that. It does seem like that the Bulls are doing a lot of taking charges in training camp, which is great. I just, as much as I like to see these, the coaching staff and the players preach about it early in the season, I have also watched this squad coached by Billy Donovan, and they preached about shooting a bunch of threes, and they didn't shoot many more threes in the year. They got off to a nice start, and then they just plummeted in their 3-point attempts. So it's one thing to preach it, it's one thing to actually show it. So as much as I like hearing about this stuff and them talking about it, without the personnel in the squad, I have some doubts that it will actually be implemented effectively and consistently throughout the year. But hopefully the front office and the coaches are aware of it, and they can understand that this should be just a development year and not necessarily anything about the end result. So, if we increase our charges by, 300% because we were bottom of the league in charges, then that's a good step. It's not going to get us to, the top of the league, but if we're able to just increase it a little bit and we see guys like maybe Kobe, for example, taking more charges, then that's a good development, but it might not necessarily lead to wins. I think that's okay. I hope that that's what the front office and the coaching staff is looking at, but I don't know, honestly, with this team. Double dipping and Ryan Surf teams is crazy work. You know what? We are crazy people. A lot of us, unfortunately, in the Chicago area are crazy people. So yeah, I cannot stand that I am a White Sox fan and a Bulls fan, and knowing that Ryan Surf's the owner of both, but that's just how I'm raised. I am a crazy person. When I'm looking at physicality theme is that we have a such deeper roster that it's okay if we foul in the 1 through 4 position. So the way it's interesting, Viper Strike, I think that there is this sort of argument that the Bulls have a deeper roster, but I was also talking about how when it comes to this Bulls squad, when people want to say that there's depth on this team, I almost kind of push back a little bit, just because the way I look at depth is, hey, how many two-way quality guys do you have on your squad? I think that there's playable people on this squad. I think, obviously Julian Phillips can get playing time, for example, but he's not exactly a person I would call a two-way player, where he's not exactly been impressive defensively and his offensive game is limited. But if there's anything that I trust him to do, I trust him to be decent defensively, right? Dalen Terry, he has all the defensive tools in the world, but offensively, I don't really see much still. Granted, he had a nice little run in terms of 3-point percentage last season, but I don't fully trust it, right? But basically my point is, though, is just if I look at this roster up and down, and I'm I really only see a couple of guys that I can label as two-way level impactful guys, or just at least a standard level. I'm not asking for you to be the best of the best on both sides, but just standard level of all right, yeah, you're at least solid on both ends of the floor, or good. it's very limited, and like I think that unfortunately also limits your depth. Like, we talk a lot about like the idea of like being the Pacers or like a lot of other teams that they're trying to have a more like depth oriented team. But I look at all their depth, right, and it's a bunch of guys that I think are impactful on both ends of the floor, which I think is a different sort of depth versus maybe what the Bulls currently have right now. But like, I think again, you're right that there are definitely more playable people on this roster than maybe some other roster, right? But I don't know how much I would consider it as like quality depth in terms of actual good, consistent play. And so again, is that me maybe saying like, hey, that's a little bit more of like a winning thought? Like, it probably is, but I always I kind of push back just a little bit of like saying we have like great depth when I'm like, I don't know about the quality of the players from top to bottom is really that great. There's like some playable guys that you can argue should get like 10 minutes a game, but if they were to be thrusted into a more important role and they're getting like 25 minutes a game, like I don't think they're going to be replacing that player that well, when I think other teams have guys that are near the end of their rotations, and then if they get thrusted into like the 6-man role, where I think that they can actually be pretty impactful, and like cover up for that person that's missing. So I think that's just kind of the way I've looked at our depth, is just like it's like okay, from in terms of two-way potential standpoint, it's not the best. There needs to be a little bit more to the squad. And hopefully we see some players develop into that, but it's not really the best right now. But with that being said, I do think that because that there are some playable guys, especially at the guard position, right? I wouldn't mind it if guys are a little bit more aggressive defensively to maybe reach for a steal or something and pick up a foul. That is something that I think should be at least like, I don't know if it should be like the whole idea of like this sole training camp, but it is something that I think the team should be a little more open to, and maybe kind of suggest to the players a little bit more. Today the shot selection when our 3-point shot lower because middies didn't increase. It's just we had more people taking layups because transition points a lot of times turn to those. Oh wait, what are we talking about here? Like when I talked about like the Bulls preached like their 3-point attempting, like they're preaching about shooting more threes, but then they didn't. Like I'm talking about like when it was like the Levine DeRozan like era, when like I'm talking about that time. That time we still were taking too many mid-range shots, at least in my opinion. It was like a very small increase in terms of transition opportunities, but it wasn't that much. There were still some problems, but I hope that I want to make that clear. They want to talk about depth. It depends on how the team wants to play, and our team just wants to run. And in that sense, we have depth. I see what you're saying. Okay, so like in terms of like play style, because we're playing up and down in transition and shooting a lot of threes, like we have the players to kind of fill those roles like consistently, and we can like kind of sub people out quickly and plug and play these guys. I definitely understand what you're saying, especially on offense. Like I would agree with you on offense. Like I think offensively we have a bunch of guys that can get out and run, and a lot of guys that can at least take some catch and shoot 3-point opportunities, and be willing to play fast and look to see if we can get any sort of easy transition opportunities. But I think defensively is just kind of where I'm a little bit more like, I'm a little more scared, where I'm like, as much as I want to say that this team is good depth on the defensive end, I don't think they do. I think there's limited depth. That could change, right? But I am a little bit more concerned about the overall defensive identity, like the defensive depth. Like if, for example, let's just say this, like the Bulls have been preaching about this whole physicality thing, taking charges and being better in terms of, not having as many blow-bys, right? On the defensive end this year. If Isaac Okoro goes down, how much do you think that like just takes away our defense, right? Like I feel like if Isaac Okoro just kind of goes down, like our defense is suddenly like very, very limited again. We don't really have a solid point of attack defender besides maybe Io, and Io is, I don't really know what we're gonna see from Io this year. Like Io's first and second years he was great, but like last year he wasn't the best. But it automatically just in my head I'm like, God, if like one person goes down, I don't really see much else that could kind of fill that gap that we have. my bad. I was talking about the March days where we didn't take many threes because we were getting layups. Oh, this past season, yeah. If I'm not talking about this past year, I'm talking about like many years ago. Yeah, I was fine with what they did in March. Obviously, like they were doing perfectly fine. They were getting to the basket at will. They were getting to the free throw line. Like, yeah, that's fine. They didn't take as many threes, but yeah, if you're getting to the free throw line and getting paint opportunities, like I'm not gonna complain. Yeah, I was overall from last year on the offensive end, like I was completely fine with what the Bulls did. Yeah, like there's obviously some nitpicky things, but I'm not gonna be too critical of it at the end of the day. Being when I think of physicality, I look at Caruso. Caruso will always almost foul out, but won't foul out because he plays what the rest give him. I see, yeah. So you want like the Bulls to play with such like an edge that like it kind of gives them like a little bit of a break when they, when it comes to the officiating. So like they sort of get that like label to them, like that'd be the ideal situation. So you kind of get away with some more things, which yeah, Caruso just has that sort of label to him where he just gets away with a bunch of stuff, which that's he definitely gets away with a bunch of crap that's just like, wow, that's crazy. But when you get that reputation, it's what you get away with, right? Yeah, Caruso is by far, like, for as small as he is, like he is by far one of the best players in terms of physicality. Like he can guard many guys that are much taller than him. But he'll still find a way to like get like a steal or like a really sneaky rebound that makes no sense. The biggest thing though, no matter what, and I will always say this when it comes to especially in today's world of defense, physicality to me, like, I think when Bulls fans think of physicality, they think of like the, Joakim Noah, like heart, hustle, and muscle, which like that's definitely part of it. Getting the offensive rebounds and diving for loose balls on the floor, like that is definitely part of it. But I also think though diving for loose balls and mastering that skill is not necessarily that impactful. Because it's a very specific situation that only comes up a very limited amount of times. To me, it's especially for someone like Caruso and for most of these people, most of the guys on this Bull squad right now, when it comes to physicality, the biggest thing by far that they can improve on, that I know everybody can do, specifically for perimeter guys, so not the bigs, just perimeter guys, it's getting over the damn screen effectively. Okay. Like, getting over the screen is one of the most important things in terms of physicality. It's making sure that you are getting through that screen as quickly and efficiently as possible and limiting the ball handler's options, okay? Using your body to block off options. So being willing to take the contact and get over that screen as quickly as you can and make sure that you limit the ball handler's options all at the same time. Alex Caruso is by far in this league one of the best at that. He gets through that screen and he makes it tough for anybody trying to run a pick and roll effectively. But not only can he do that, but then he's also like a reliable switch guy that you can just like switch onto like, someone big. Like we saw it sometimes that like when he was with the Bulls, like they'll just like put on my guys like Julius Randle and like he'll find a way to like be effective. I'm not asking for that necessarily from the Bulls this year, where I'm like, hey, Kobe, I need you to somehow, find a way to, if you're going to switch this pick and roll, like, I need you to be able to guard a guy like Jaren Jackson Jr. or something like that. Like, I don't need you to do that. But what I do want to see Kobe do is if there's a 1-5 pick and roll that's happening and Vooch is involved or Collins is involved, like, you're not going to switch that. But what I do need Kobe to work on is getting through the screen. That's like by far one of the things that I think everybody that can on the perimeter end can work on in terms of physicality. The other thing that, and it kind of ties along with this, is that you have to use your body and make sure that you don't allow that player to reject the screen. So like if I always come in my mind, it's always Damian Lillard, but it's not gonna be him. Like let's just say you're guarding Anthony Edwards, right? Gobert comes up at the top of the key and he's on Edwards' right. For the pick and roll, but then suddenly Edwards just a crossover move goes left and rejects it. Like it's you as the main primary defender on Edwards, is that you cannot let them reject the screen and let Edwards just get a line drive to the basket. That's something that has been a major problem from many Bulls defenders. But it's just understanding how to use your body effectively to take away that option. And so if Edwards does try to like reject the screen, that you gotta make sure he doesn't go by you. But it's on you to try to force him to take the screen, because that's where our defense is. That's where we have our help, and it's our defensive rotations are set up to help in that sort of spot. Because if you let him reject the screen, then our defense is just blown up. It's completely blown. So I think that's just like the biggest thing, that it won't show up in the box score necessarily. It won't show up, in terms of like the highlight plays of like, oh wow, that guy gave 110% effort on that play. But it is something that will 100% take notice from people like me and others. Like, if you're just getting through the screen more effectively, it really puts a lot of pressure on the offense. It's a tough ask, because we're gonna, hopefully, ideally, continue to play at our up-tempo style, and so that's gonna be a lot of energy used if you are gonna be, running that fast and also playing that hard defensively. But that's what the identity that the Bulls are trying to work on. So I'm hoping that's being preached. It seems like Billy has sort of talked about that so far in training camp, and I'm hoping for better results. Honestly, it's like, do I expect Josh Giddey to suddenly become like a really good defender? No, but Josh Giddey needs to do better at getting through screens. Not being like Alex Caruso level, but he just needs to be better at getting through them, because defenses will pick on him. Same thing with Kobe. But the biggest thing, I think for Josh is just making sure that he doesn't get blown by as often. I think teams more so look at him as like, oh, one-on-one matchup and just blow right by him. If you can limit that and force the player to go one way or the other, then it helps a lot. On the other side of the ball, that's something that bothers me with Giddey, is everything is a ghost screen with him, even when he doesn't call for it. Wait, what do you mean? On the other side of the ball, that's something that bothers me with Giddey, is everything is a ghost screen. Are you talking about for offense? Like, it seems like they're just doing like slip screens, and they're not actually like coming up and setting like an actual screen, like a hard, like a really good, like nice set screen. Like always lazy screens. Yeah, that is ideally something as well. However, unfortunately, I think this is a personnel issue where it's just like, Vucevic actually has like pretty decent screens from the numbers. Like his overall like screen effectiveness, like from the numbers, is actually pretty effective. Now, Jalen Smith though, right? He's a guy that he doesn't really set hard screens. Like, he's more of a slip screen guy. That's always kind of just been his MO. Collins though is someone that can definitely kind of work on that. But I will say this: I think with what Montes Buzelis said in his press conference, where he talked about that he worked on screens, like, he's gonna have to be the next guy. Like, it's gonna be like him and Patrick Williams are like the next guys up to, like, if we're gonna have harder set screens, it's gonna have to be from like those two guys as well, to add more wrinkles to the offense, but just put those guys in more of like a opportunity to be involved in the offense, especially for Buzelis. Like, I think Buzelis, if he's gonna really try to take this next sort of leap, if he can set good effective screens and get a switch and then take advantage of that mismatch, that's gonna be the next step for him. And setting hard screens is part of that. So I'm hoping that's going to be a big thing this year. Is we'll see, guys like Buzelis screening for guys like Giddey and Kobe to effectively work off of. And I'm really excited for Buzelis, but I'm also just like, I'm really scared for what I'm going to see from Buzelis. Like, he talked a big game at the press conference, and I'm like, oh my god, like, I didn't expect you to come out and say these things. And he talked about working on like these 4 specific things of ball handling, shooting off the dribble, shooting when the guy goes under the screen, and screen setting. Like, those are like 4 major things that are like those are like on ball type of guy working, like, you work through those attributes, right? And he talked about wants to be most improved. Like, I'm excited as hell to see him, but that's a lot of pressure on a sophomore that I still think is kind of growing into his body and still trying to, figure out how he fits into the game. Like, it's a lot. But if he's able to come out and average like 16, then I'll be so excited about the Bulls' future then. But yeah, I'm hoping that it's going to be something just positive from Buzelis this year. If he's going to come out and set good screens and be an effective on-ball offensive player this year, oh my god, that's gonna be amazing. But I'm not gonna have those expectations of him this year. I think that's a poor thing to put on a guy that didn't start for half the year last season. But he has a mentality, that's for sure. I think that's the biggest thing I've taken away from it, is that he has a mentality that he can be a star, which is good. Giddey's big enough that he should have good hard screens when doing a 2-man game with Kobe. Oh, like good, like the I guess it'd be the 2-1 pick and roll if Giddey's your one. Yeah, I definitely think Giddey should be a guy that also sets like decent screens to try to put some pressure on the defense and essentially operate in a way to be like a hub in like the middle of the floor as a passer. Sort of how like Draymond Green can kind of work his magic, setting good screens for Curry and then he passes it to someone else. It does suck still that the Bulls don't have like an athletic big that Giddey can like kind of throw a lob to. Like that's kind of like something I would like to see to kind of help Giddey out, but I don't really know where that's going to come from anytime soon. I know that Buzelis is here, right? And like, maybe a Sengi down the road, but again, I'm not putting that pressure on those guys just yet. So, yeah, I that would also be nice. But I think the Bulls are going to probably just have the Bulls in Giddey's hands as much as possible. So I don't know how much we're going to see that. I'm expecting to make mistakes like he did last year, but I'm hoping he does the same thing where he improves as time moves on. Oh yeah, I mean, I'll be like very much pleased if like I don't really care about the box score necessarily if Buzelis is like just obviously like being more comfortable and understanding how to like create certain advantages, and if he's going like levels of impact more consistently as the year goes on, like I'll be very, very pleased and everything. I just want to make sure that we don't like really put all the weight on his shoulders suddenly, because he wants most improved. Like most improved for a lottery pick in his year 2 is just like it's unheard of. Like you have to understand how good of a season Buzelis needs to have for him to win most improved, because it's like we expect him to get better, right? If you're going from rookie to sophomore season, like we expect you to get better. So if you just get better a decent chunk, like that's great, but you're not gonna get most improved from it. Like that's just not a thing. For him to get most improved, like he's gonna have to like average like 20 points per game and like at least 9 rebounds and like 2 blocks, because we just expect him to get better. So that'd be like if he does that first and foremost, let me tell you, then I'm like, oh my god, the future of the Bulls is saved. But that's unheard of. I don't expect him to come in and do that. Like he would arguably be the Bulls' top leading scorer if he averaged 20 points per game. Like maybe second behind Kobe. Like that'd be crazy if that actually does happen. I'd feel great about it, but that's tough. Like I don't expect that to just suddenly happen this year. I could find a world where he does that in year 3, if he has like a really good year 2, but I don't expect him to do that in year 2. But I'm hoping that we just see him with his main attributes on defense, which is the shot blocking, switchability, but making sure that he's able to still stay in front of guards and hopefully work on his rotations, because that is like probably the one thing that he kind of messed up a lot defensively last year, was just his defensive rotations were not sound. He would miss a lot of defensive rotations, and he would have just some ball watching issues a little bit. But when we did see him effectively rotate, we saw how effective he could be. We saw his length in terms of his on-ball defense, how effective that can be as well. That's already been a consistent theme from him, which is great. So I'm hoping that that's going to continue. But then scoring wise, it's gonna be a lot of on-ball stuff that I'm looking at, because he preached a lot of on-ball game this offseason. So I better see some more on-ball things from him. It doesn't have to always be converted, but it has to be some good on-ball stuff. I did not expect it. I did not expect him of all players to get a perfect 20+ game. Oh, for sure. Especially with how many like layups he was missing early on. Like, yeah, he had a perfect game from the field. I don't know how many did he score in that game. Was it like 20, 21? I have to double check that. But yeah, it was that's something that's like, oh my god, all right. Where you see the potential in him, and how easily he could end up being as a scorer. But there's a ways to go, right? It's not just gonna come around in year 2. All right. With that being said, though, it's gonna be interesting to see what we're gonna see in preseason and in early on in the year. This whole physicality thing, like, I hope to God that it ends up being good. I just really question the limitations of this roster in terms of physicality. One of the things that I've always said about physicality is, like, if you have a team that has like a lot of like lengthy wingspans, like you can really be a good physical team just because you have the length to be effective in that end of the floor. But the Bulls, just their backcourt has just a very short wingspan overall. They don't exactly have the best overall wingspan until you get to some of the more athletic forwards on the squad. So I don't really know where it's gonna consistently come from day in and day out from this Bulls squad, but I'm hoping we at least see improvement. That's kind of just my biggest thing, just see some level of improvement. If we see, you know, Kobe White take like 11 charges this year, that's great. That's a high number, but I'm like, hey, if he does something like that because he doesn't have like the best wingspan but understands the rotations defensively, like, great. I'm hoping that's something that we can see, but I don't really know what else to really expect, unfortunately. With that being said, though, we have to talk about some injuries. So we do know, as we heard from the press conferences, that Kobe White is going to be limited with his calf. He is still limited. We saw him, at least from day 2 updates, that he did some shooting, was on the bike most of the day, but is still going to be very cautious about what he does. And that makes a lot of sense. Kobe White is in a contract year, and the last thing he needs is to tear his Achilles. So I 100% agree with what Kobe White's doing. As I've always said with this, like, I just always trust the player. I know the Bulls medical staff is not necessarily a good medical staff to trust in recent history, but no matter what, I'm just gonna always say trust the player on this. So I think Kobe should take as much time as he needs, and him being cautious in training camp, I think, is perfectly fine. I hope that they don't rush him back at all. He doesn't feel like he needs to rush back at all. Just keep it safe, and make sure you're at 110% with that calf before coming back, because the last thing he needs is to tear his Achilles. So hopefully that's gonna all work out fine. I would like to see him play in at least one preseason game before the season starts, but if he can't, it's okay too. But I'm hoping that he's at least staying engaged with like all the team plays and everything, and the team schemes. So he needs to obviously make sure he stays up to date with that. And then the next step would be his conditioning aspect of it. If he's gonna miss all these preseason games, like, he's gonna miss some conditioning, because there's nothing that can replicate in-game conditioning. It's just, you have to just play games. So that'll be like the next step that he's gonna be a little bit behind on if he misses all of preseason. But I hope that's not gonna be too bad as we get into the season, if he's gonna miss some time in the preseason. So that's just the biggest update we have of him so far. I just expect him to just be kind of doing something similar to this, what's on screen here, for probably the next week plus, and honestly maybe even until the season starts, which is gotta be disappointing, but I understand it. The biggest news, though, that was just like, you've got to be kidding me, it's day 2, and we find out this information, but Patrick Williams in day 2, so this was yesterday, he rolled his left ankle early, and he tweaked it, I should say. I should make sure I use the right term. He tweaked it when he planted, and apparently it was from a jump stop, from what I read from Julia Poe. It was a jump stop, and like, he just tweaked it somehow. It was a non-contact injury, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. That's something that I do not want to see at all. Like, I'm starting to get to the point with P. Will that it's like, he might just be unfortunately made of glass. And the good news today, if you're wondering, like, so we got news today that like he was a full participant, which is great. We then also got some more injury news, unfortunately, today, which is not so good. That for a different player. But I as good as it is that Patrick Williams was able to fully play today, I'm still just concerned. Like, I'm very concerned about his like stability, honestly, his footwork. But also just like, is he potentially just made of glass as a player? And there's nothing that we can really do about it. He's talked about that he's slimmed down, so like I don't think he's overweight or anything like that. But Patrick Williams missed a lot of games last season, and he missed a good chunk of the year. So I need this guy to make sure that he's able to stay healthy. We can't have him missing games again, like how he's missed like the past 2 years. So last year really sucked for him. He was a very, very bad player overall. The one good thing that he would usually bring is the 3-point shot, and that dipped. So I'm concerned about him moving forward just in general. I'm like, okay, like, brother, I need you to make sure that you're on the court as much as you can. Things happen, obviously, but because it's a non-contact injury, it just makes me sick to my stomach. Again, he practiced fully today, so I don't want to like blow it too much out of the water, but with the more recent injury history with this guy, I'm just concerned. So I'm not gonna be, cautious with him or anything. If he's able to play, then play him 100%. Don't limit him, but he's got to find a way to stay healthy. I understand some things are just out of his hands. Like if a player runs into him and bends his knee and tears his ACL, that's not his fault. But a jump stop and we're tweaking our ankle, I'm like, bro, like, come on. Like we got to find a way to not do those sort of things. So whether that's he's got to work on his footwork or work on his like strength in his lower legs, I don't know what that means, honestly, but find a way to just make sure you're not doing that as often. That'd be ideal. But he needs to, Patrick Williams, like for just his own sake as an NBA player, he needs to find a way to stay healthy and not have things like this happen. His value is already down the drain with like it honestly, if it gets any lower, I'd be shocked, but his stock overall is terrible. So the last thing he needs, though, is to just get injured and lower his stock even more, as then he's labeled as a injury-prone player and no one's going to want him. For just his own sake as an NBA player, like I understand he's got this nice contract, but like if this continues to happen and he continues to play this poorly, like he's not going to get a second contract. But no matter what, though, the Bulls just need him to play better. And the only way he's going to be able to play better is if he is playing. And I think that this is one of those guys that if Billy Donovan wants improvement in terms of physicality on this roster, okay, like I don't think Kobe White's gonna necessarily improve drastically with his physicality. Like I think Kobe White actually tries defensively, but he just sucks defensively just due to his body size and his lack of length on his wingspan. I don't think Josh Giddey's gonna suddenly become like a great defender overnight or anything like that. But if there's a guy that I think has the physical tools to be a more effective defender and a more effective rebounder and just be more effective in general in terms of physicality, it's this guy right here. Like, this is a guy that is 6'7", that is, good size for a wing, and ideally should be able to guard multiple positions on the floor, and should be getting a lot more rebounds than he does right now. Bulls have preached offensive rebounding this so far for training camp. Patrick Williams is a guy that I think can go and get more offensive rebounds. But again, he has to stay healthy if he's going to ever be a factor in those areas. So, hopefully this is just a one-time thing, but I will be keeping track of this just because Patrick's missed a lot of time the last 2 seasons, and we're already starting out with him doing something to his body here. So, gotta stay healthy, man. It is what it is. But this is what Patrick Williams had to say, though, about last season. He said, obviously, I wasn't my best. No excuses for that. No excuses for that. So for one, just being better, I think that's part of being a leader. You have to look yourself in the mirror and say, okay, I need to be better. Which, it's great that he has at least some self-awareness. Like, I'm happy that's part of it. But you can say all these things, but once again, I need you to go out and show it. You can't just say I need to be better and then continue to put up the same numbers you put up your rookie season and worse shooting. Okay, this has to be a year of redemption for Patrick Williams, and starting out with an ankle tweak is not great. But if we can get through this ankle tweak and he's fully healthy to start the year and potentially fighting for a starting spot, I don't think he'll get it, but potentially fighting for a starting spot and making sure he's in the rotation to start the year, then I think we're off to a decent start. And he has to make sure he takes advantage of his minutes that he's given. Because to go off of what you've been saying, Viper Strike, about this team's, depth in a sense. But the more I look at this team, in like, Patrick, unfortunately, is one of the guys is like I look at as like, I don't know, I kind of push back on the whole depth argument because of guys like him, because I think he's a negative on both ends of the floor currently. But in terms of Patrick and his own sort of role, right, I do think that in his position, there are guys coming for his spots right now. We already saw Buzelis take the starting 4 spot, which Patrick, has been in that role for a good portion of his career, but that's gone already. The Bulls did acquire Isaac Okoro, and that's another guy there. Kevin Huerter, if you want to throw him in that category, but Noah Sengue, which I don't think he'll be starting at any point or getting, consistent minutes early in the season, but I think we all know he's coming, and if Patrick doesn't somehow improve and make sure that he's a reliable NBA caliber player, then Sengue is just going to take those minutes from him at any point, because it's going to come to the point for the Bulls, especially if they're not winning as many games, where it's like, all right, well, Sengue has had some time in the G League. Patrick's still not playing that well. But if we're going to pick between the two of these guys of who we're going to try to develop for our future, it's going to be Noah Sengue. And so, if they're going to maybe just take out Patrick Williams out of the rotation and just play Sengue instead, I personally won't be mad at it, especially if Patrick Williams is not playing good. So I just, like, I want to make it clear, as much as like some Bulls fans think, oh, Patrick's just always gonna have a spot like to play due to how much he's getting paid and everything, and the Bulls and their draft picks, they always want to play their draft picks, but Sengue is also a Bulls draft pick, right? Like, if the Bulls, for one, like, they just trade for Isaac Okoro, and if he comes out and plays better than Patrick Williams, then it's like, okay, like, that's another guy that AK is always going to try to preach, is like, we got to play him because he traded for him. Like, he's his guy. But if this continues for Pat, where he's either not healthy or he continues to play poorly, like, his spot is just evaporated in the rotation. Like, I hope people understand that. Because of Buzelis, because you went on and got a Coral, because you just drafted a Sengue, like, all of a sudden now the forward potential depth is there, where someone like Pat is just no longer needed. And that's not even to mention that I think that they're gonna have to consider playing Jalen Smith at the 4 a little bit this year because of the center rotations right now. Assuming that Vooch is not moved at any point, or Collins not moved, like, Jalen Smith might have to play some 4 minutes, which takes away minutes from Patrick Williams again. Yeah, once again, I never root against any player, and as much as I've criticized Pat, I really do root for him. Like, I want him to figure it out. I want him to play well. I want him to come in and be a consistent NBA player, because he has the physical tools to be one. He just has not done that, and it's so frustrating to watch. And he'll never be able to do it if he's injured. So starts here. It starts now, and unfortunately his spot in the rotation, it's not guaranteed for the future. I think honestly Patrick Williams' saving grace right now is just that Sengue is probably not gonna be ready to start the season in the rotation, and they're probably gonna send him to the G League. Okay, but especially if the Bulls are not really winning, come like February, they're like not really winning that often, and they're kind of considering, like, okay, we gotta just make sure this year is actually fully about development, then, like, I think Sengue will take his minutes if Pat's not playing well. And it's just like, God, man, like, Pat, you gotta show me something good. So I'm looking to see how this is gonna work for Pat. Has to be a rebound year for him, and that includes, like you said, Viper Strike on Twitter, has to include more rebounding in general. Yeah, he's just an awkward guy. I think all his problems stem from that. Maybe, man, but, like, here's the thing though, like, I think I'm also an awkward person. I guess I don't play a physical sport. Like, I'm a very socially awkward person. So, like, I don't know if, like, I don't want to blame it necessarily on that for Patrick, but I think honestly, I think using the word awkward to describe his body and, like, how his body is, like, kind of looks sometimes, is not a bad term to use for Patrick. And I'm just talking about, like, how his body's, like, kind of built in a way. Seems like he doesn't have much kind of lift off one foot. His like right knee is kind of bent inward a little bit, but also then like his jump shot can sometimes be weird. Yeah, it's like this weird whole thing going on with Pat. I don't want to like say like, oh, like he's an awkward guy, like his demeanor is why he's, you know, bad. Like I don't want to say that, but maybe it's just a showing of how his internal like fire in him is just not really there, right? Like I think Asenge kind of like, if you listen to how Asenge kind of talks, like Asenge also like is like the most outspoken person either. But if you looked at Will Gottlieb's most recent feature story about Asenge, like Asenge might not necessarily be that expressive, but his coach was talking about how much like he has that driven like competitiveness inside of him that is like he might not show it, but like Asenge is always kind of thinking like, oh, I should have done this better, like I can do this better. And like you could tell like Asenge wants to improve. Like Pat, we don't know if he has that, honestly, so I do think that's something to keep in mind. What's going on, Darius? Good to see you. Haven't seen you in a bit. How you doing, Darius? Appreciate you checking in. If you've not already hit the like button on the stream, please do, helps me out a lot here. Yeah, I legit think Herder has an understated for sure role in this team. Oh yeah, I agree. I think Herder's is gonna get minutes for sure. From what we've heard, at least so far, is just that from Will Gottlieb is that it seems like the fifth starter role, okay, it does seem like it is between Kevin Herder and Isaac Okoro, at least for now. So like I thought I was gonna be in the mix. It doesn't seem like he is. But it does seem like it's going to be between Kevin Herder and Isaac Okoro. So like, yeah, Herder's definitely going to have some sort of role, whether it's off the bench or starting. I wouldn't be shocked if Herder's in the closing lineup if he's not starting. But also just in general, like Herder's going to take minutes from Pat if Pat can't figure it out, man. I thought nothing once I saw he was hurt. Like we won't really lose anything with him out. I mean, it's crazy to say that though, right? Like Patrick Williams is the 4th overall pick that we look at as supposed to have good two-way potential, at least being an impactful player. Not star, but just being an impactful two-way player. And if we saw that he got injured, we're just kind of just like, oh my God, okay, here we go again. Like, we're not here saying like, God, that really sucks, like we're gonna miss him, or if he has to miss time, we're gonna miss him. Like he seems to be back and, you know, fully back, right, from what we saw today. But like it's just, we're at that point now with him in his career where we're just like, bro, like if you're not able to stay healthy and you're not able to find a way to be impactful on the floor, then like your spot is gone in the NBA. It just is. Like he was such a negative last season that I don't think people understand how bad he was. That like if he wasn't, you know, part of this Bull squad, or if he wasn't getting paid $18 million, like if he could arguably just be looked at as just a guy that should be only making the minimum last season with how he played. Like that's how bad he was last year. So I'm like, bro, you gotta show me more. And you getting injured is not a good start, man. That's the last stream and part of this one. Did you share your thoughts about the other restricted free agents? I have not talked about those just yet. Yeah, I'll talk about Quentin Grimes and Kuminga on the stream for sure. I won't lie, I'm a little bit shocked at both of their decisions, but well, I'll definitely talk about it. I promise you that. Kick Pack out of Chicago, bro. I mean, look, I'm not there yet with Pat. I mean, like, look, I'm not like trying to back Pat or anything, or like try to be in his like camp or anything and be like, no, support Pat. I'm not like that. Like whatever happens this year happens. If he's terrible again, then I'm like, yeah, we need to find a way to just get rid of him. But I'm not at the point where we're just gonna just waive him just cause. Like that contract is gonna be so detrimental if he's on this roster, or sorry, if we waive him and he's just stuck on the salary cap books for dead money. It's gonna be so detrimental for us because the Bulls don't go into the tax. Yeah, I mean, I want him gone, but I'm doing anything in my willpower to make sure that we're able to trade him before we have to just waive him. But I won't lie, if Pat can't stay healthy, then I do think we have to consider waiving him, and try to like file for like an injury clause or something. But I don't think Pat's gonna get to that point. He'll just be injured enough to where it's just like it's really annoying, but not injured enough to be like, oh, he's gonna be out for a year. Herter and Giddey is such a plus when playing together that the fact that Giddey is so centered to this team means Herter's not far behind. In terms of if Giddey is like the centerpiece, the surrounding cast that would help Giddey the best, I do think Herter is definitely one of those people that can help potentially, right? But potentially is always the biggest word. Potentially help him effectively. The only issue again with Herter is just the lack of defense from him, right? If we're talking about in terms of like who can be the best supporting cast around Giddey, you definitely want a more defensive, like you want a guy that can shoot like Herter, but then be as good defensively as Herter, or sorry, be better defensively than Herter, right? But in terms of who's on this roster, right, I do think Herter as a sniper is a good complement piece to Giddey. Yes. I'm also not there for Pat, but if he plays the same as last year, then I will be there. I mean, yeah, like if he comes out as what he did last season and he plays less games, then I'm just like, okay, like we have to actually have a discussion about if we need to actually waive him, because we can't have him just be taking up a roster spot here, and you know also potentially taking up minutes. Like it's not like Patrick's contract was just like in terms of his overall impactfulness, like if you look at his impactfulness in his contract, it was so bad last season that I'm just like, oh my god, like you would just be better off of just having no one play. Like that's how bad Patrick was last year, especially in certain moments, was just like you might as well just have no one on the team and them making 18 million versus him playing and making 18 million. So once we get to that sort, like we had that sort of discussion where we're just like, god, like it's just that bad. But if he has another level of that year again this year, then it's just like, okay, we actually have to have that discussion. The dead money will hurt, but it's better than having Pat on the roster if he does something like that again. But again, I don't want that. I want this guy to succeed. I want him to come and show me like, hey, the two-way potential that I also saw in 2020 is there. Like, I want to see it. It's just his time's running out. So trying to figure out why they played hardball with Giddey and negotiate, but didn't with P. Will. So the reason why they didn't play hardball with P. Will was because they saw the market for similar players and they were getting some money like very easily, right? They saw like guys like Devin Vassell, he got a good chunk of money. We saw Jaden McDaniels, he got paid pretty easily, right? And like Pat and Jaden McDaniels actually had like pretty similar numbers, honestly. And it was one of those things where you're just like kind of look at the market and you're like, oh wow, like it seems like guys that have Patrick's sort of build that, you know, has good defensive potential but can also shoot the three ball. With Pat specifically, like his 3-point shot was like a big thing because he shot so well. We were like, the Bulls were heavily concerned, including myself, that he might actually get like a good chunk of money on the market. And then it gets weird because it's like the way that teams can try to pry away a restricted free agent is like they'll like throw in a whole bunch of like clauses into the contract. Like they could have thrown like a no trade clause or like a big humongous like a poison pill type of contract in to maybe pry away from the Bulls, where it's like Pat won't get paid as much early on, but then like suddenly his contract spikes up to like 35 million in like the last 2 years. There's definitely ways you can definitely kind of use leverage to try to pull away a guy from even in restricted free agency. However, with that being said, the Bulls, and including myself, like I'll say that how much I was wrong about this. We read the market completely wrong, right? We legit read the market 100% wrong, because we thought that guys like Patrick Williams would be heavily sought after in that free agency market. Like I thought going in, like a team was gonna 100% try to target Pat and maybe not pay him as much as the Bulls did end up paying him, but like pay him like a decent chunk of money. And then again, like weird things in the contract can happen, and you know, maybe the Bulls didn't want, you know, to go through with that stuff, right? It also kind of put the Bulls in like a weird limbo situation where it's like, if Pat's still restricted free agent and just still kind of out there, then it's like this whole thing. So yeah, like maybe that was kind of what was going on. Again though, I want to say, like, I read the market wrong, the Bulls read the market wrong, and I don't think it's, you know, that shocking to see the Bulls read the market completely wrong. This is the Bulls front office at the end of the day. But I will say, I also read it wrong. However, when it comes to then obviously the Giddey situation this offseason, okay, I was adamant that there's just no salary cap space. So if there was ever a time where if you're gonna play hardball with a guy, it was this past offseason. I don't think for many of the restricted free agents for the next upcoming offseason, like I think a lot of the restricted free agents are not going to go through what these guys had to go through in the next offseason, okay? It just so happened that this offseason, where you just look at the salary cap space around the league, there's just none. And it also just came at a bad time for these guys, just because the league was still kind of adjusting to the new CBA, and so we're seeing a bunch of teams like trying to get rid of salary, right? And so even if you thought of like, oh, they might try to do a sign and trade for Giddey, it just limits you too much to even consider it, right? That's why it was like, this was the perfect time to play hardball, right? And so if it was flipped, then, you know, I could see definitely the Bulls in the 2024 offseason where they do pay Giddey $30 million a year. And, you know, I'm already saying then at that point, the Bulls regret the contract, because there's no way in hell I am paying Josh Giddey $30 million a year. And he just had a season where he was pretty terrible the first half, but then, you know, really good in the second half. It's just not a complete year. I'm not paying that guy $30 million a year. That's a lot of money. But that's not what happened. It so happened Giddey's restricted free agency happened this year, and there was no salary cap space to be had. So I think the Bulls did a good job until they caved in at the last second. I don't understand why they did that. I think they had all the leverage in the world just to stay at either 80 million or 88 million. But to be honest, like I was trying to make it clear to a lot of people, and especially to the Giddey stands on Twitter, that if you look at what restricted free agency was doing this year for all the restricted free agents, I think the Bulls were treating their restricted free agent the best. Like Cam Thomas got offered a 2-year contract at best from the Nets. Okay, the other option was a 1-year contract from the Nets. We just saw Jonathan Kuminga sign a 1+1. The Warriors didn't offer more than a 3-year contract, and it was a team option, okay? Quentin Grimes seemed like he was not getting paid a lot at all from the 76ers, which makes a lot of sense because the 76ers are trying to avoid, I don't know if it's like the first apron or whatever, but they're trying to avoid a certain amount of money, and paying Quentin Grimes would have made that really, really difficult. Giddey, right off the bat, got 4 years, 80 million guaranteed. Like, by far, that's the most amount of guaranteed money that was offered to any restricted free agent at the start of restricted free agency. So, I say it to a lot of Bulls fans that are just like, listen, if you think that the Bulls treated Giddey poorly, I don't know what to tell you. I think the Bulls treated Giddey pretty well. And in the end, Josh Giddey signs the most amount of money by far out of all these restricted free agents. And it's all guaranteed. No other restricted free agent was offered any sort of long-term guaranteed money. But the Bulls offered it to Giddey. So if there's anything to just show you that the Bulls do really believe in Giddey, it's that they caved in and they offered the long-term money. It was, I want to make, like, I don't know why people, like, a lot of the Giddey stands are still saying that the Bulls screwed over Giddey. I'm like, no, we did not. I think the Bulls were very gracious to Giddey if you look at what the other teams did to their restricted free agents. You can argue that Giddey's the best player out of those four. That's fine. But that doesn't mean that you need to be the nicest to him out of the four. You should still play hardball, and I think they still should have. I will say that finding out the contract was flat, it did increase my Giddey grade. I gave it a C+ when I first found out about it. We then found out it's a flat rate, so it's 25 million per year over 4 years. So because of that, it is now a B- for me, but the Bulls don't have room for like getting a B-, honestly. They need to do better. They could have definitely gotten an A+, at least in my opinion, with this Giddey contract, and they didn't. I think they had every ability in the world to get an A+, but they didn't. So at the end of the day, that's their decision. That's not mine. Guys, I did hate the P-Will contract originally. He was solid shooter and one of the best defenders behind Caruso and I at the time. I mean, right, like Patrick at the time when he got that contract, I mean, like I go look at my video I made. Like I was fine with that. I was actually thinking it was pretty decent value for the Bulls because Vassell got paid like in the 100-something million, and then I know McDaniels also got paid that much. Like if you compare Patrick Williams' contract to like Jaden McDaniels, it's significantly lower. Obviously, Jaden McDaniels has continued to be an effective starter for a Western Conference Finals team, and Patrick Williams has been very disappointing. So, you know, there's that. But at the time, it was just like, oh, wow, like that's looks all right. But then you look at Denny Avdia, what he got, and you look pretty stupid, right? You look at what Isaac Okoro, right? Like the Cavs played hardball with Isaac Okoro, and they did perfect with him, right? Similar sort of situation, right? Where you have a guy that's a top 5 pick, same draft as Patrick Williams, and the numbers are sort of similar, right? And decent 3-point shooter and averages 9 points per game, doesn't rebound enough. But he's probably a better defender than Pat. But he signed his contract September 17th, right? Like he didn't get paid a lot at all. So that's what the Bulls should have done. Like the Bulls should have 100% done this, right? With Patrick Williams, we just didn't know. The Cavs took the gamble though, and it absolutely paid off for them. Which honestly, when you look back at it, it's not even a gamble. It was the correct decision. It was the very clear correct decision, and hence why the Cavs are better if they have a better front office than the Bulls. So yeah, it's not that. It's just how it is. Wonder what number Pat was overall as he started in the NBA. They don't have a stat for that. Wait, what? Wonder what number Pat was overall as a starter in the NBA. Don't they have a stat for that? In terms of like, wait, what do you mean, King Cap? Like, in terms of effectiveness as a starter, you mean? Like, what was he in terms of like effective player of all starting players? Like, what was his effectiveness? He was also young, and we expected progression, not regression. Oh yeah, I mean, a lot of the second-year contracts is for players, unless they're already an all-star, it's betting on them to get better, right? Hence why Pat got more money, for sure. How much do you see Cam Thomas getting on the open market? I honestly don't really see him getting too much, honestly, because I think that he will not be one of the more sought-after guys in unrestricted free agency, and he unfortunately, because he's just he's a very niche type of guy where he needs the ball in his hands, he's not a good defender, can be an electric scorer, but not consistent sometimes. I don't think he's gonna get that much. I think a lot of players that are gonna start seeing how much the CBA is gonna start affecting them, because I think we're gonna see like smaller contracts than what we originally thought. That does not mean like, oh, a $30 million player is gonna go down to like 10, but maybe a $30 million player goes down to like 25, and then it kind of like goes on from there. Cam Thomas, unfortunately, because of his sort of play and because of where teams are in terms of like how much money they're gonna have, but then the expected free agents, like I don't really think he's gonna be the most sought after guy. So like if I make a guess, it'd be around 20 million a year for him, but I think that's kind of it. That's MLB free agent. Sorry. Now I am aware that the number of free agents for the 2026 offseason continue to shrink. I am very much aware of that. Like Kevin Durant is he's expected to resign. We'll see about others, right? But there's definitely some people on this list that I'm sure are gonna get paid a hefty amount. Let's see here. I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens with Porzingis. Harris could be like a decent player, I guess. Let's see. Norman Powell should get paid pretty decently. Here's Kobe, so this will be interesting to see what Kobe does. Getting. Where to God? There's another guy. Honestly, this list is actually worse than I thought. I keep forgetting how many people have already re-signed because free agency is just not a thing anymore, honestly. Yeah, Cam Thomas will be here. He's on the qualifying offer. Yeah, all right. Honestly, I'm looking at it. Maybe there's a world where like a little bit of a worse team is willing to pay Cam Thomas some more money. There's Cam Thomas. Yeah, maybe there's definitely a world. Maybe he gets to 25 million. I still think teams will be more safe about it, but maybe there's a world he gets to 25 million. I do think Colin Sexton will be a guy that some teams will also go after. Rui Hachimura is another guy. Mitchell Robinson, if he could just stay healthy, will be another guy that teams will really be targeting. Yeah, Kelly Oubre for sure. Yeah, I'll be definitely interested to see. So, assuming that LeBron is not going to change teams, and Durant will resign, because I'd be shocked if he didn't. Like, your best free agent is honestly Kristaps Porzingis, which is kind of crazy to say from what we all kind of thought, but yeah, I don't know. I guess now everyone's looking to this offseason because this is like the biggest year with a lot of players available. But I wouldn't be shocked if that list also shrunk. Yeah, we didn't really play hardball. We played softball, hardball. That's honestly the best way to describe it. We played softball, hardball with Giddey, which is just like, I don't know why we didn't play harder. We should have definitely been a little bit more harder on him. I think the Bulls, once they gave him that 88 million, they should have just said, all right, like, take it or leave it, bro. Like, the qualifying offer, I never think is a good decision for many people. The only, like, I think there's an argument for Cam Thomas, like, only is like, he makes the most amount of sense from what the Brooklyn Nets were offering, and he was not getting paid at all. So like, there's definitely a world for Cam Thomas where it works out. But I mean, like, I think for Quentin Grimes, this is a mistake. You know, if Giddey took the qualifying offer, which I thought he would, because it just seemed like him and his representation just seemed to be so hell bent on 30 million that I'm just like, if y'all really take the qualifying offer, when no matter what, he was getting paid 4 years 80 million, like, I would have absolutely just started saying a whole bunch of stuff about Giddey's representation, because that would have been a terrible decision for him. Cam Thomas makes the most sense to take the qualifying offer. Like, he makes the most amount of sense, but I still don't think it was the best decision. But yeah, at the end of the day, we'll see what ends up happening. Do you see a team that's starving for offense will go after him hard? Like, yeah, that's kind of like the idea for Cam Thomas, is like maybe someone like that could go after him. Like, maybe the Washington Wizards, because I know they're gonna have a bunch of cap space in 2026. Okay, hold on. So let me see if Patrick's even updated this. My guess is no. Okay, yeah, they still haven't updated, because right now it just says projected cap space is 149 million, which is not correct. Let me pull out this Keith Smith tweet, as he tweeted this out a little bit earlier in the offseason, that said, like, okay, here's his projections of salary cap space for the Bulls, or sorry, for teams in 2026. Yeah, you know, sometimes I think I bookmark things, and I find out I don't bookmark things, and it's really annoying. So give me 1 second. All right, hold on. Okay, so here's the list as of current right now. Oh, I did have a bookmark. Jesus, I'm terrible. All right, here's the list. So the Wizards, as we saw earlier, they got rid of the Jordan Poole contract. They brought in like CJ McCollum and others to just take the salary cap space for this year, and they're expiring. So the Wizards are gonna have a ton. The Bulls, at the time of this tweet, which was July 10th, this was their projected salary cap space. That is obviously a lot lower now because the Giddey deal was not implemented yet, right? So you take away 25 million of this number, and so, you know, the Bulls are already at what, 30 million ish, which is, if you look at my salary cap projections, that's kind of where I think I have it at. It's around there for the Bulls. So the Jazz and the Nets would then be the next two teams, and obviously Cam Thomas is going to be an incumbent of the Brooklyn Nets. But I don't really see him going back to Brooklyn unless he has like an astonishing year. Yeah, I mean, so if you're wondering, here's my projected salary cap space for the Bulls with the Giddey deal in place. This is my number. It's 34 million, and that's us keeping the cap holds on Kobe White and Ayo. Now, this is probably the difference between me and Keith Smith is the Dalen Terry contract. Honestly, no, it's not that. I don't know. I have to look at what Keith Smith's looking at, honestly. I've included this as well. I'm not really sure, honestly. Anyway, so yeah, this is my number as of right now, for the Bulls salary cap space. But I know it's not that much, as people would have wished. But with the Giddey contract now in, like, it's, people thought it was gonna be 80, 100 million. It's not. It's gonna be this much, honestly. But can maybe the Utah Jazz go after Cam Thomas? I mean, sure, I definitely can see it. Thing is, though, it's just that I think what most teams might look at for Cam Thomas is, hey, we need a dynamic scorer off the bench, right? We'll give you the mid-level exception, which will be $15 million next season over 4 years or 3 years, right? That, I think, is honestly the most likely route. Maybe some team is able to, like, create some salary cap space to give him, like, 20 million. If there's a team like the Wizards or maybe the Jazz, or if maybe the Nets want him back that are, like, starving for offense, then yeah, I think they'll definitely consider it heavily. Signing and trading for a guy is scary right now, so I don't know how likely the situation that is. But it will be interesting. If you're wondering why it's going to be interesting to look at, and you're probably already kind of thinking ahead, Darius, right? Like, what does this mean for Kobe, right? Because Kobe is also going to be in a similar situation where he, unrestricted free agent, scoring guard, that's not exactly the biggest, doesn't really play defense. He can definitely play more off ball, though, right? I think Kobe can play a little bit more off ball than Cam Thomas can. Now, I do think Cam Thomas is overall the better scorer, right? But I do think that Kobe is kind of in a similar boat as him. It's going to be interesting to see what exactly does happen. Like, it seems like the Bulls want to keep Kobe around. But, like, he's going to have, like, an astonishing year for a team to offer him, like, 30+ million, I think, in my opinion. But I could be wrong. Maybe some team is willing to take the gamble, right? And be willing to offer him that much money. Like, could he go to Brooklyn? Yeah, I mean, if the Brooklyn Nets, like, really like Kobe White and they see what they saw, like, maybe this upcoming season, are like, yeah, like, well, we'll take a gamble and say that he's going to end up being a 25 point per game scorer, and, we'll offer him 30+ million. Could happen. I don't really know, though, like, how much, like, how likely that is. But yeah, we'll see what does happen here. I am going to be interested to see just kind of how the market shifts. Because I do think a lot of teams are going to be trying to get, like, they're trying to adjust the CBA and not offer as much money as before. So we will see how those kind of markets change as we move along. I think Emmanuel Quickley's deal is going to be huge, focal point in Kobe's negotiations. I mean, that was also a focal point in the Giddey negotiations, and I'm just like, I hate the, like, just because the Raptors made a terrible decision does not mean the Bulls also need to make another terrible decision. Like, the Quickley contract was the bet that he was going to get better every year, and he's going to actually, like, turn into, like, an all-star caliber player, which he didn't. But just because that the Raptors made that decision does not mean the Bulls need to make that decision. I do think Kobe, that will be definitely a focal point for sure. It will just, again, it just kind of depends on, like, what team's willing to take the bet. Like, I don't think the Wizards are going to be looking to spend money in free agency. I think they're going to be using that money to spend on getting draft picks if they're smart. But maybe they take a bet on Kobe. Like, there's definitely a chance. Like, now that Jordan Poole's gone, all of a sudden, like, and assuming they don't bring CJ McCollum back, like, yeah, they're gonna be maybe looking for some scoring for sure. But if it's not that team, then I don't really know who else is gonna be offering some of these guys some, like, high level contracts to come in and, like, be they're one of the top scorers in the league. So it'll be interesting to see for sure. The one thing I also want to make clear about Kobe White's negotiations that's going to be interesting to see here. Kobe arguably took a salary pay cut in his restricted free agency deal, which is the current deal he's on right now, right? Him making only about $13 million a year or even less. It's very nice for the Bulls, right? I think his agent was pretty smart for just to kind of tell Kobe just to take that deal, because looking at how restricted free agency is kind of playing out all of a sudden, like, I don't really know what he would have gotten. There's probably maybe an argument he could have gotten a little bit more, like maybe gotten to like mid-level exception level, but maybe don't get as many guaranteed years, right? So I think that's like fine with what Kobe and his agent decided to do. But I also then think now for Kobe's unrestricted free agency, I think that now it's like it's all in, right? Like they're gonna try to get as much money as they can. So I don't really know if Kobe's gonna be willing to take another pay cut, like in a sense of like, oh, he's gonna try to threaten to leave on the like the mid-level exception offer, right? He is gonna try to get as much money as he can, because he kind of took a pay cut already in his first or his second contract. So it'll be interesting to see what does happen. Now, mind you, I want to make this also clear. These numbers can change drastically, right? The Bulls can also still open up salary cap space. The Brooklyn Nets and the Utah Jazz could definitely open up salary cap space. There's teams that currently are not projected to have salary cap space that could definitely open up salary cap space, right? The biggest thing though is that there is salary cap space in the league, which means that there's more opportunities for teams to open up to open up the salary cap space. So that is the one thing we have to keep in mind. Like, it's hard to kind of see, or project out like who's going to have the space when we're a year out. So that will be the more important thing to look at later. But yeah, this could definitely change at any point. Another team could be added to this list with like 50 million suddenly. That is definitely something that could happen. So yeah, we'll keep track of it. All right, I want to get back to though. Let's see here. I do want to get back to some news that we got today. So we talked about Patrick Williams already and his injury, tweaked his ankle, and he was on a bike for yesterday as he had to be kind of held out of some of the practice after tweaking his ankle. Patrick Williams was back fully today and was able to participate fully. So that's good news overall for Patrick. However, then we find out today that Giddey had an ankle tweak. And it sounded like he had an ankle tweak yesterday, I think. But I have to double check that. I'll look at it from Casey Johnson here. But okay, no, never mind. I guess it was today. So Giddey, though, he was limited a little bit. But as we see here, he practiced mostly otherwise, so he was limited in just a little bit, but it was held out as some contact work. So I'm hoping, once again, I'm just like, God, man, we can't have these injuries this early that are severe, but it seems like so far they're not severe. They're calling them tweaks instead of rolls or sprains. So that's a good sign. But I mean, like, if you're the Bulls, man, I'm really hoping that this does not continue throughout all training camp into the preseason, where we're just like, yep, injury here, yep, injury there. That will be a very bad overall thing for the Bulls. So please do not let this continue for the Bulls. Like, this needs to just stop now. But I wanted to like kind of think about it, where I'm like, okay, the Bulls have had obviously in the past where they've had injuries happen. Like the Lauri Markkanen one was always the one that I've always remembered, where it's just like, we're in the middle of training camp and Markkanen somehow like completely messes up his elbow, and it's not his fault by any means. It just is what it is. But he misses then like 6 to 8 weeks because of it. But I'm also just kind of thinking to myself, like, are maybe some of these injuries happening because the Bulls are like trying to like take all these charges? Because if we look at what Casey Johnson like was talking about or tweeting out, it's like apparently a lot of people are taking charges. Let's see here. Yeah, so we've taken more charges in the last 2 days than we did in 82 games last season. Like, that's great, right? Like, if this continues into the regular season, where we see this team taking consistent charges every single game, like, that's a good thing. But it's also there is the whole saying that of like, yeah, you sacrifice your body, like, to take a charge. That is also true. So I'm just like, it's good. It's a good mentality to have. But if we are getting injured during training camp because of it, let's make sure we don't continue to do that. Let's make sure that we are working on taking our charges and working on our defense and working on being, more physical as a squad. Let's also make sure that we don't injure ourselves, please, for the love of God. There is then the argument that, hey, taking charges and not getting injured is an art. I definitely think that is an argument to be had. And so, you can maybe argue that some people are not taking charges correctly and they're injuring themselves because of it. I don't really know what exactly happened with Giddy. I'm hoping it wasn't like a non-contact issue, but if it was, then yikes. But if he twisted his ankle or something from taking a charge, that it is what it is. Let's just make sure we don't injure ourselves really badly during training camp. That's going to be a very important thing. And I'm hoping that we are able to find ways to not do that and learn. So, hopefully, what Viper Strike said earlier, our depth's going to be able to keep us afloat, even if we have some guys out. But the last thing I need, though, it's just it's gonna be interesting to see what's gonna happen in the future of the NBA, because there's this argument about getting rid of the whole charge or the offensive foul, which I think that it's an actually legit argument. I will say, though, for a team that does not have as much rim protection, I do think the Bulls need to be kind of investing into this, and so I am happy to see that they are doing such a thing. But I also just, once again, it really does scare me if people are going to potentially get injured. And not necessarily the player taking the charge, it's the players that are committing the offensive foul. If they go up for a dunk or something and then they run into a guy taking a charge under the rim and then they don't land correctly because of that, it's a little bit scary. So keep at it and make sure that things continue to work out well and the players are learning. Sorry, hold on, I need to respond to this, but just please be careful. Don't have anybody injured. That would be the last thing we need for this Bulls team, especially because it's a big year to try to evaluate guys. And so taking time away from evaluating guys like Kobe, guys like Io, Patrick Williams, for example, but others as well will be detrimental. And also then, God, if Buzelis gets injured, Buzelis played 81 games last season. If Buzelis gets injured and this is supposed to be a major development year, it's such a there are a lot of things I look forward to when watching the Bulls right now, but Buzelis is by far one of the biggest things, if not the biggest thing I look forward to. And so if he misses significant time, I'm gonna be so depressed watching the Bulls. But hopefully that doesn't happen. I'm gonna be praying that Buzelis stays healthy, which he's off to a good start in his career with it. But again, just be careful. All right, now other thing I want to talk about today, before we do end stream here. So I just want to say thank you for all for tuning in. I don't know if Darius or Viper Striker King Cap are still here, but thank you for tuning in. But with that being said, though, there is a couple of things I do want to talk about. Still relates to the Bulls. So first things first is this. So once again, I always want to just make it clear what we are going to be doing for this year on this channel. Sorry for all the ads. I hate all these ad pop-ups, and I have my ad blocker off, so I do apologize. But first preseason game for the Bulls is October 7th. Okay, so 6 p.m. against Cleveland Cavaliers. So we'll be in Cleveland. So as per usual, we will be doing our post-game streams for as many games as we can this year. Obviously things can happen, but my goal is to do more post-game streams than even last season. And last year was by far the most amount of post-game streams I did in a year. So we're going to do as many as we can. Things happen, right? But we will be doing as much as we can here. So no matter what, post-game streams will happen on this channel consistently throughout the season. Plan is also to be doing more videos this year. I know I said this last year. It didn't happen. And so I'm really going to be holding myself accountable this year for making more videos throughout the year. My plan was to have a bunch of videos in September, but then I got hella sick. And I don't know if you can still kind of hear it in me, but I'm still have a lingering cough even still today. And I got sick in the first week of September. So, but with that being said, though, I am still planning on doing more videos this year. There will also be an announcement from me soon. I was hoping, I was really hoping on having an announcement today. Unfortunately, I cannot. I have no announcement for you guys today. I was hoping to have it today. The plan was to have it today. Unfortunately, I do not have it today, but there will be an announcement soon. I was expecting it by far, no matter the latest. It was supposed to be October 3rd, but I don't have it right now. I don't know when it's gonna happen, but it should be coming soon. So at least, no matter what, it should be at the latest. It'll be like after the first preseason game. I'm gonna hope to God it's not gonna be that late. It should happen before the first preseason game here, but be on the lookout for an announcement from me soon here. I'm excited for it, man. I'm really excited about this announcement that is gonna happen, which I could probably talk about it right now, but I don't want to. Before I sign something, I don't want to just say like, oh, I'm gonna go and do this. So yeah, it's basically as if like nothing's official, but I've verbally agreed to something. So we're in the midst of that, and it's gonna relate to Bulls content this year. So I'm excited to be doing doing it this year, and I hope you guys are gonna be enjoying the content as well. Yeah, that is gonna be the plan for this year. It's gonna be, as per usual, the post game streams, and we're gonna be doing hopefully more videos throughout the year. I want to involve the community more throughout the year, so if you have not joined the Discord already, please go ahead and join the Discord. There's a link to it in the description box below, so please go and join the Discord. And I want to have, like, there's always ideas to have in mind, but like, you know, mailbags and stuff like that, but also just like, hey, you know, we can have a stream where it's just like I hop into a voice chat call with you guys, and we can just have a fun stream like that. I think it'll be a good time. So if you have not joined the Discord already, please do so. Whether you're watching the VOD right now or watching the VOD, or if you're watching live, join the Discord if you have not already. Then join CSN Chicago. If you see that I joined Chicago Sports Network, then you know, all I'm gonna say is just make sure I'm doing okay. God, man. It is not me joining Chicago Sports Network. That is not the case. I honestly think that from everything I've said so far about Chicago Sports Network, that there is no way in hell they'll ever hire me. It is a I have criticized the absolute crap out of that network, and I'm still criticizing it to this day. So if they hire me, I'd be shocked. But yeah, it's not that. But God bless everybody that is still working for that network. My guy Jason Goff, bro. They somehow Jason Goff and Chicago Sports Network, by the way, they couldn't come to an agreement. And I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, how the hell did Jason Goff and them not come to an agreement? Like, that's, I don't know about you guys' opinion, but that to me is 100% on Chicago Sports Network. Like, you've got to be joking. I think Jason Goff was by far one of the best pre and post game hosts, and he just somehow they weren't able to keep him or come to the agreement. So, congrats to Cam Smith. He'll be taking over pre and post game duties, but that's just shocking to me with how that happened. But yeah, it is kind of shocking. Any updates on Kobe's injury? So we did not get any updates on Kobe's injury today. You can go and look through Casey Johnson stuff here. Nothing on Kobe's injury. So my assumption is just that it's just gonna be this from here on out. Until we get another update. It's just that he's gonna be doing some shooting, some bike riding, no contact at all. Just working through his calf strain and slowly ramp himself up to getting the contact. So I'm once again, I want to see him at least play in one preseason game. I don't know if that's gonna happen or not, but I want to see him at least play in one. But if he can't, it is what it is. We'll live. We'll be okay. All right. Let's see here. Last thing, especially if Darius is still here, I want to get your opinion on this, Darius. So let's see. We talked about this live stream as well. But now looking at the looking at the free agent list now, it is kind of scaring me a little bit. It's like it is less people than I thought, and certain guys I do think are gonna have some like pretty decent value. Because as we see the league kind of transition to like well, a little bit more depth wise, and we're trying to figure out like, you know, what players still hold certain value, and what players maybe don't have as much value anymore with the new CBA. But we were talking about this, so I was kind of talking to myself about it, honestly, but I want your opinion as well. So once again, here's the Bulls salary cap space. I know it's a bunch of numbers, just bear with me for a second. This is the Bulls salary cap situation for the 2026 season as of right now. So Giddey is here, Patrick Williams in his contract. I don't have it fully filled in, but don't worry about these years just yet. Okoro and Jalen Smith, Trey Jones with his re-signing, Asenge Buzelis on their rookie deals, and Julian Phillips is still here. Okay. Now, the number here for the Bulls is in the highlighted blue box currently. Is they currently for under, this is my calculations, and as of right now, the salary cap under Spot Track is this number. If you look here, now we have gotten word that it should be 166 million, but we don't know the exact number, so therefore I don't have a number. Well, I don't have that number right now, so I'm just going off Spot Track. But either way, still, let's just say it's 166 if you want to. But this is the number I have for the salary cap space for now. Okay. So it's 34 million. Now, how can this number get bigger? So if we let go of Io, right, and get rid of his cap hold, which means we get rid of his bird rights, and we let go of Kobe White, then this number can get up to 73 million. Okay. So that is, like, for what I can tell right now, without trading anybody out and without, you know, sending other players out and declining team options, the highest number you can get is this number. Okay. However, I do not think the Bulls are going to be getting rid of this Kobe White cap hold. And with Io, it does seem like that the Bulls have been looking to trade him. But for someone like me, and I understand that some people think I have like an Io, like I have like too much love for Io. But if we're talking about depth in this league, right? Like a guy like Io who can play on ball, off ball, guard multiple positions when he's right, finish at the rim as one of the best guards in the league at finishing at the rim. And we've seen him in the starting lineup and out of the starting lineup. And yeah, his impact is definitely better in the starting lineup, but we've seen him also have decent impact in his career off the bench. Do you want Io to even hit unrestricted free agency? Do you want to maybe just re-sign him and offer an extension right now, so he doesn't even hit unrestricted free agency, and try to keep him? Because right now I'm looking at this list here, I'm just like, like there's definitely some decent free agents out there for sure, but if there's a guys that could be available to come and help like a contending level squad, because like I think Io specifically is a guy that can go to like a contender and help him pretty effectively. Like, you want to risk letting Io even go into unrestricted free agency and risk just letting him leave for nothing? There is always the option of trading him, but my suggestion is this. So the projected mid-level exception for the 2026 offseason, okay, is 15 million, almost flat. Okay, so this is the projected number for Io, for mid-level exception. Okay, Io's cap hold is this number. So, you know, I thought about, like, okay, like, well, maybe we can get rid of this cap hold and get the salary cap space. But let's say we don't do that. Let's say instead we offer Io something like this number. Oh, sorry, extra zero. Okay. Oh, what? Wait. There we go. And to make it just very evident, like, this would be an extension. Okay. What do you think? Like, do we offer Io an extension, which it would limit our opportunity to have more salary cap space, but it makes sure that he doesn't hit unrestricted free agency? And if the Bulls still end up wanting to trade him, I still think that's a very tradable contract. For the Bulls. This, let's say here, like, let's say Io gets this number, okay? The Bulls still have about the same amount of salary cap space left over. Okay, it does eat into a little bit, but it's not. It eats into about 500K, right? So it's not like a massive difference. It is still impactful though. I want to make it clear, like 500K still is important, but it's not that big, right? So what are we thinking? Is this a good idea, or do I like Io too much, and thinking that, you know, something like this is just being stupid? Io's into Kirk Heinrich, basically. That's honestly a really good comparison. I also love Kirk Heinrich. Yeah. I do think Io's a better finisher at the rim. But yeah, Kirk, it's a good comparison for sure. Mitchell Robinson's intriguing, injury prone, but intriguing. I agree with you. The injury prone is definitely concerning though. I just have to figure out what our center stuff looks like before I would target Mitchell Robinson. Not a bad idea for Io. Okay. Yeah. So if you're wondering how this is going to work for Io and his contract, All right, hold on. But oh my god, sorry, hold on. I'm trying to pull up this list and it won't. Why? I don't know why I won't do. Oh, here we go. Okay, hold on. Oh no, is it gone already from down here maybe? Alright, I'm trying to pull up the salary numbers, because that's important actually. Okay, well, either way though, we'll go off this. Hold on, I'm checking one more thing. I want to go back a year, but it won't let me go back a year, I guess. Okay. Anyway, yeah, we're all right, we're not gonna go back a year, unfortunately, which is really stupid. What's going on, Noel? Doing all right. How you doing, Noel? It's been a while since I've seen you. All right, so sorry, Darius. I'm trying to pull up all this stuff here, but basically though, how Io's extension is gonna work here, is based off of the average salary of the NBA, and the reason why we have to go off of this is because the extension numbers goes off 140% of your previous contract. But as we know, Io is only making 7 million, right? So, you know, do the math. 140% of that is about 10 million ish, which is just not enough. Like it won't get you to where Io's going to be probably making more than 10 million come next off season. But maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? But that's usually the number that we go off of. But that's not what we're going to do right now. So. For example, it's 140% of, 140% of the salary of the final year of the previous player's contract. Or what we're going to be using is the 140% of the NBA's estimated average salary, whichever is greater. Okay. And so right now, for basketball reference, this is the number. This number could definitely go down for it to be lower, but basically what we can offer for Io would be 140% of that number as the first year of his contract. So just, you know, calculator. So like we'll just do 14 million, for example. But his first year would be this number. Okay, so it'd be like this is the most that we can offer him. Basically, I just want to make this clear because like some people are going to be looking at like the 7.5 million and be like, oh, well, 140% of that is only 10.5. Like we can't offer him that much. Like, well, no matter what, the estimated average salary for the NBA is going to be higher than 7.5. I promise you that. So even let's just say if it's 12 million, right? This is enough to definitely offer Io enough to be like, okay, maybe you could just consider just giving him the extension immediately, and keeping him around, right? So yeah, like 45 over 3 years, like I think that's honestly a pretty reasonable contract for Io, like because that's basically mid-level exception money if he would go into unrestricted free agency. Like I don't really see a world where Io would get like 20 million. Like I'd be kind of shocked if he did, especially because it does seem like he's gonna be coming off the bench to start the season, and he's not a consistent starter. Well, when he was in the starting lineup, he has played well, but like he's just not a consistent starter throughout his career so far. But you know, you can argue that he's a really good sixth man to have. As I mean, last year still, like he had a career high in terms of points per game, even if the shooting splits weren't the best for him. I mean, like 12 points per game, right? Is like that's pretty decent in 30 minutes. But again, he still shot at least 49% from the field. The 3-point percentage is not great, but you know, a guy that doesn't turn the ball over a lot. He plays solid defense when he's right. I know last year wasn't the best defensively, but plays solid defense when he's right, and can handle the ball, can be off ball, can play like 1 through 4 technically, because we saw him play the 4 last season a little bit. Let's just say 1 through 3 though. Good wingspan, right? Like he's a 6'10" wingspan, and so that's always impactful later in his career. I will say this: I don't think I'd offer Io this now, right? If I were the Bulls, I'm definitely not offering this now. If I were the Bulls, I'm not going to offer it to him immediately. But the Bulls can offer Io this contract basically throughout the entire year, right? Or offer an extension throughout the entire season. So I wouldn't be opposed to it, where it's just like, all right, well, let's see how you play up until Christmas or something like that, or like through January, and then you offer it to him. And like if he's playing like how you played last season and stays healthy, right, the shoulder looks good, then yeah, like I'd offer him 45 over 3. Like I think it's a pretty solid offer. He has every right to turn it down, by the way. Like if he thinks that him and his agent could go out and get more money, I think that's perfectly reasonable for him. But I would like to see if he's playing that well still, and we can lock him up, then I definitely wouldn't be opposed to doing this. As much as I want to go young, and Io isn't necessarily the youngest player in the world right now, I think that he's a nice compliment to all the young guys. And you know, if there has to be like, let's say a turnover, like let's say the Giddey situation doesn't work out or something like that, and we lose Kobe White in free agency, and so then we have to kind of restart our backcourt build again. I think Io can be like a nice placeholder or a nice complimentary to whoever we bring in to kind of fill the backcourt. But even if like, you know, let's say we don't bring back Kobe, right? Because like there is the possibility that Kobe White does end up leaving in unrestricted free agency. If we make sure that Io is still here, then it solidifies, you know, that spot for a little bit longer, and make sure that we don't like lose 2 guys for nothing in the free agency. So I think it's just kind of worth it just to think about. I know I'm blabbing, like I'm just blabbering right now, but like it is something that I have been kind of considering, because you know the Bulls don't have like the most amount of like cap space, right? Like this is the number I have currently. That's after the Io DeSumo extension possibility. So this is Io's cap hold. So this is how much the Bulls are gonna have for my calculations as of current time, but things can change. Yeah, it is just something just that I kind of am like going back and forth on it, because it's like, you know, you might want to keep the flexibility where it's like maybe you're able to take on some more contracts, and you just got to get rid of Io's cap hold, and then you use the mid-level exception to re-sign Io. Like there is that world, right? Where if you don't understand what I'm saying, is that like let's say the Bulls need a cap space for Io, so you get rid of his cap hold, right? And so you then open up this much amount of money in cap space, but then after you use up all that cap space, you then use the non-taxpayer mid-level exception to then re-sign Io again. You don't need his bird rights to do that, but it would then be, at least in my opinion, a waste of the MLE to do that. But that is a possibility as well. But yeah, I'm just thinking of like ideas for the Bulls if they want to potentially just lock up Io moving forward, and not be too much of a detriment for you. But that's just my thoughts at the end of the day. So I want to just kind of go over that, kind of look at all the numbers again, because this is just projected. This might be lower or higher, we'll see. But I definitely think Io could go out and get mid-level exception money. Especially if he comes out and plays well, like I think that's definitely a possibility for him. So we'll see what ends up happening here. But I do want to end stream there, so I just want to say thank you guys so much for tuning in to the training camp update and us just kind of talk about ideas for the Bulls. Next stream, I definitely hope we're gonna have an announcement for you guys. We'll see if I do. I also then want to talk about like potential Bulls rotation, as we're hopefully gonna get an idea of who the fifth starter is gonna be, but then also talk about who's gonna potentially take Kobe's spot in the rotation as he's out to start the year. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth on next stream. We'll also then talk about any sort of training camp updates. If there's some big updates from the beat writers and such. And then we'll be previewing this game and seeing what to look out for. Assuming that the Cavs at least play their starters at least some minutes, then there's going to be certain things to definitely be looking out for. But player development is always key, and so I'm hoping to see Noah Senge and some of the other younger guys to get some solid minutes in preseason, just to get used to the NBA tempo and NBA play style. A little bit more of a structured play style instead of like summer leagues, so that's going to be important for those guys to get that time. But with that being said, though, if you have not already hit the like button on stream, please do. Helps me out a lot. I sincerely appreciate all the support throughout the entire off season and heading into the season. So thank you guys so much for all tuning in and commenting and tuning into the streams and just being supportive of the content. So thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate it. Yeah, I'll let you guys know when the next stream is here, and hopefully we have a nice time before the season starts, and hopefully no one else gets injured. I'm looking forward to the season starting. First preseason game is October 7th, so we'll be ready then. All right, y'all. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Sincerely do appreciate it. Thank you, Darius, King Cat, Viper Strike, Noel. Thank you for all tuning in. I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace.